Hello dear learners, I welcome you all to this module on English as the global lingua franca, which is a part of the MOOC on Introduction to Functional English. I hope you all are enjoying the different modules of this MOOC intended to provide you with some very basic ideas of communicative functional English. In the previous modules, we have discussed the importance of English as well as why English has emerged as the most important language of oral and written communication in the 21st century. This module should be seen as an extension of that discussion, and here we shall try to understand the importance of English as the global lingua franca. So, the main objectives of this module are: first, to discuss the meaning of the term lingua franca and what does it mean to see English as a lingua franca. Second, to trace the history of the development of the English language as the most important language in the 21st century. Then third, to discuss the emergence of English as the academic lingua franca around the world. So let us begin this module with a discussion of the term lingua franca. In linguistic terms, lingua franca is a language adopted as a common language between speakers whose native languages are different. Thus, the emergence of English as a global lingua franca relates to its use as a global means of inter-community communication and is also understood as the communicative medium of choice. Although lingua francas have been used for centuries, what makes English important is the extent to which it is used in spoken and written communication as well as in computer-mediated communications in the 21st century. So, English as a lingua franca refers to the use of English as a common means of communication among people with different mother tongues. For instance, a Bengali tourist in Kerala asking a Tamil passerby for directions, a Punjabi teacher conversing with an Assamese colleague during an international conference in Bombay, a group of Assamese students chatting with French and Turkish students over Zoom or Google Meet, or German, Portuguese and Brazilian co-football players sending each other online messages about their team's future strategy in the game. All of them are actually communicating in English as a lingua franca. The emergence of English as the lingua franca henceforth focuses on the variations which is manifest in the use of the resources of English for a wide range of globalized purposes such as business transactions, international diplomacy, as well as in informal exchanges between national and international friends and organizations. Besides, technological advances in the 21st century have enabled instant global communication, thus breaking the barriers of space and time between two different locations of the world. This means that the whole world has turned into an interconnected global system which requires a shared means of communication. Here, English fulfills the need for a global lingua franca. Now, friends, let us see why English emerged as the lingua franca. To understand the emergence of English as a lingua franca, we need to explore the history of its emergence as a language of communication and also see the reasons that led to English gaining such a global status. However, before discussing the same, let us first try to see what were the lingua francas of ancient times, as it is found in Encyclopedia Britannica when the Roman Empire spread from the Mediterranean, Europe, and touched Africa and Asia, Latin became a dominant language. Latin was also used by the Roman Catholic Church in European culture, law, science, philosophy, and religion. It remained the lingua franca among the European scholars until the 18th century. Dear friends, another language acting as a lingua franca in the past was Portuguese. In between the 15th and 18th centuries, which we all call the age of exploration, Portugal emerged as one of the major European colonizers. Hence, Portuguese served as a lingua franca in distinct parts of Africa and Asia, where it was used for trade and diplomatic purposes. Languages such as Egyptian, Chinese, French, Greek, Latin, Hebrew, or even Arabic also held the status of lingua franca in the past, acting as a contact language among people who did not use their first languages. All of these languages mentioned above developed a significant position as lingua francas in distinct parts of the world. However, in later times, due to the spread of British colonialism, English surpassed all other languages. Today, it is really so impressive to see English functioning as the global lingua franca or a communication tool among people from different countries of the world. English as a lingua franca functions at the global level as a language uniting people from different countries of different first languages. Therefore, it is important for us to learn this language, most importantly, how to use that language. Many tend to argue that the 19th century was a time English first reached a strong global position. By the end of the 19th century, English communities and speakers through colonial enterprises settled around different parts of the world as part of business, trade, and educational missions. However, the rise of the USA, a country having the largest number of native speakers in English as a superpower in the world in the 20th century, finally established the dominance of English. We shall also note that the different political and economic developments also contributed to the growth of English. However, the emerging need to communicate in a language understood by all was a bigger factor. So, the growing needs of sharing and disseminating knowledge in the 20th century required a language for all communications to take place, and here English served the purpose. Now, dear learners, let's try to understand who speaks English today, or who are the English speakers of the 21st century. Today, English is used three main groups of speakers. First, those who speak it as their native language. Second, those who speak it as a second or additional language. And third, those who have learned the English language as a foreign language. So, dear friends, most learners like you and I, or most learners like us, belong to either of the second or third category. We all know that English is the native language of various countries like the USA, the UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. English has some historical significance through British colonialism and others in countries like Singapore, India, Nigeria, South Africa, and Philippines, among others, where it is used as the language of some or all of the country's institutions. However, both these groups do not represent the major groups of speakers of English in the 21st century. The largest group of speakers, however, is to be found in the developed industrial countries like China, Japan, Korea, etc., where English is used as a foreign language. Today, English is used predominantly by the non-native speakers as a lingua franca thanks to the forces of globalization as well as the need to communicate in modern workplaces. As a whole, today, English is being used as the working language of many international domains. The 12 major international domains as listed by David Gradle in his book The Future of English have mentioned 12 major international domains where English is increasingly used as a working language. These domains include international organizations and conferences, scientific publications, international banking, economic affairs and trade, advertising for global brands, audiovisual cultural products like TV shows or popular music, international tourism, tertiary education, international law, in translation as a relay language, technology transfer, and internet communications. As the number of people using English in the above areas keeps expanding, English is likely to maintain its position as the most dominant language among the world's languages. Because of the use of English as a lingua franca in international trade and intercultural communication, native speakers of English today are outnumbered by non-native speakers of English. At the same time, the extremely dynamic nature of the English speakers today also entails that English is used for a variety of purposes. Dear friends, against this backdrop where English has no boundaries, first we need to explore the use and usage of English in different functional areas. Second, we need to know the structure of the English language and grammar. Third, we need to see how English is used in the domains where it serves as a working language. Fourth, what type of skills are required to learn the use of English by those belonging to different language backgrounds. And fifth, who use it as a vehicular language or as a lingua franca. This means that the vast number of its users and the domains have finally established English as the lingua franca. In this MOOC, we are actually trying to discuss all these important issues and aspects of the English language through different useful modules. Let us now try to understand the current status of English as the academic lingua franca. We have already discussed that the way English is used as a global lingua franca greatly depends on the specific situation of use. Hence, communicative efficiency or getting the message across is more important than grammatical correctness while using the language. Of course, grammar also needs to be good enough for the message to be intelligible. Let us, in the following, try to explore the use of English as the academic lingua franca that has further strengthened its status as a lingua franca. The term English for academic purposes or EAP covers language research and instructions that focuses on the communicative needs and practices of individuals working in various academic contexts. Driven by the growth of English as the leading language for the acquisition, dissemination, and demonstration of academic knowledge, English for academic purposes has emerged from the fringes of the English for specific purposes movement in the 1980s to become an important force in English language teaching and research. In the last 3 to 4 decades, the universities across the world, particularly in the developed countries like the United States of America or United Kingdom, had to deal with an ever-increasing population of overseas students. The same is happening in some Asian countries like China, Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan. However, most of such students are not native English speakers. For instance, Asian students alone account for more than 50% of all students studying abroad. This means that educational institutions will increasingly need to provide language instructions to this body of students in the form of English crash courses, pre-admission courses, short-term courses, presentation courses, or courses like massive open online course like this one, the current MOOC, Introduction to Functional English, and so on. Clearly, this development of such courses and programs and the instruction within them is in the realm of what we call English for specific purposes that we have already discussed in the previous module. However, other than the above, country-wise initiatives also bring forth the importance of English. For example, in Korea, the Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology aimed to conduct all classes in English since 2010. This was done partially to attract foreign students, but also to improve the job prospects of its local graduates, many of whom will end up perhaps working in the English environment at Samsung, which has adopted an all-English policy. In a country like Japan, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology initiated an all-English program for overseas students at the country's top institutions. In China, for example, the government made room for the universities to offer bilingual lectures to students for quite some time. Such developments that clearly state the importance English as a language has gained even in the field of academics. Globalization has also had an impact on the academia from the point of view of research. One of the most dramatic effects of globalization on research has been the proliferation of high-impact English-based journals and journal articles, particularly in the areas of science and technology. One major objective being the need to publish in English if they hope to reach out to a larger global audience and readers. Another interesting byproduct of globalization has been the presence of various policies of journal publishers from across the world to deal with a growing number of submissions from non-native speakers of English. Most publishers advise their authors to get their manuscripts English checked by someone who knows the language. Many publishers today even provide paid editing services. Hence, the growing impact of English in the academic world cannot be overstated. However, some people argue that English for academic purposes focuses more on the written language, whereas English as academic lingua franca relates mostly with the spoken discourse. We shall discuss English for academic purposes in detail in some later modules. Dear learners, so we come to the end of this module. In this module, we have learned that a lingua franca is a chosen common language spoken between individuals with different first languages. Hence, English as a lingua franca describes the use of English as a common bridge language for speakers of different native languages. British colonialism and imperialism, the US's prominence as a political and economic superpower, the rise of the internet, and the increasing globalizations are the main contributing factors to the emergence of English as a global lingua franca in the 21st century. Today, English is perhaps the only option for people who do not share their mother tongue or have another language in common. Using English is important not only for personal communication in various social domains, including the internet, but also for professional reasons. It is a shared language. In other words, it is a language that opens door for better social and professional opportunities. So, dear learners, please try to learn this language and also the various skills of using English for your day-to-day as well as professional purposes. You can also benefit immensely by going through the various resources on English as the global lingua franca which are available on the net. So, see you again. Till then, bye.